Hello there. So welcome to my study. My study is about optimizing bio-inspired and smart blade designs using computational fluid dynamics method (CFD). You may be asking, what is my interest in this topic? So there is a need for more renewable energy, especially wind energy, since it was increasing since the 2000s. Also, my interest is because uh, I always I was always curious to know how wind turbines worked and how everything behind just the fan worked. So a better way to do that other than conduct an experiment or a study. Also, I wanted to optimize my blades for a better analysis, and also wanted to find an alternative to a time-consuming method, which is CFD. I also wanted to make adjustments or smaller adjustments to my blades that are very difficult to do in just physically, but in CFD it would be easier. So where's my idea from? So since I was younger, me and my family would always go to science museums, and I would always be interested in the energy section where it talked about wind turbines and energy in general. And that was just very interesting to me. Um, when I was thinking for an idea for the science fair, I decided on using something about wind turbines, and I decided on and using bio-inspired and smart blade designs for wind turbines to optimize efficiency and resilience. And so I did that, and it was an experimental method. And now I'm willing to continue this study by studying CFD. So I'm currently in the process of studying CFD because it's a long process. It's a long process, um, but I'm planning on doing CFD later on, maybe this year or the next. So what is my question and proposed solution? So my question or questions are, can computational fluid dynamics used method can it be used to analyze different wind turbine blade designs and be a better alternative to an experimental method? Also, can CFD be used to optimize my previous bio-inspired and smart wind turbine blades from my previous experiment in 2020? So this is my proposed solution. If different designs of wind turbine blades are analyzed using a CFD, the CFD can be a better alternative to more expensive and time-consuming experiment or studies. And also, this would be very beneficial since the CFD method is more efficient and it's just a faster way. Also, it's about the same. It's about the same accuracy. So what is CFD? CFD is a computer simulation. It consists of three main things: engineering, fluid dynamics, very complex computer science, and mathematics. So, like I said, this is a long process. So I'm currently taking a computer science class to learn so I can learn how I can program, so I can apply that knowledge to CFD. Also, it not only does it stop at programming and computer science, but it also has very complex equations and mathematics in general, which I'm planning on doing research on later. So what are some solvers or CFD softwares, as some people can say? So these are some that I found. So there's star CCM Plus, ANSYS Fluent, and OpenFOAM. So from the research papers or research articles that I've summarized so far, I found that ANSYS Fluent is most commonly used between all of them, but there are still some people that use star CCM and OpenFOAM. So what is the science behind my study? This study consisted of many science and engineering concepts that required knowledge about aerodynamics and physics. There were several equations that I had to calculate, such as the wind power coefficient, which is one of the most important ones, lift force, drag force, angle of attack, and some other ones. And in general, when I was testing my blades, I wanted to increase the Reynolds number lift to drag ratio, and most importantly, the power coefficient or the power output. On the other hand, what I wanted to decrease was the drag, force, and boundary layer. Also in the CFD method, some science behind that was what I discussed earlier, which was like mathematics, computer science, and engineering fluid dynamics. Let's talk about my methodology. So this is a continued project that I started last year. In my previous study, I conducted an experiment with bio-inspired and smart blades, and I used a wind tunnel to test my blades at a lab. And so this year, I'm in the process of learning about CFD for a CFD analysis for my blades. But I'm still in the process of doing so. Um, I use so for right now, I am currently doing a meta-analysis on some research journals that use CFD to analyze blade designs of any characteristics. And so I used academic search complete database to search and acquire some papers. I acquired over 50 journal papers, and I have summarized them and until I got about the main 5 that I wanted to uh, use for my metadata analysis. I summarized them by reading the title and abstract and finding ones that met the criteria that I wanted. Um, so let's see some of the main important journal papers that I used. So this is a study done by Akantu in 2017. So the tip speed ratio was compared with the power coefficient. So these are some blades with different chord length. I'm not able to explain what exactly the chord length are, but uh, you can notice that a trend, which you'll also see in some other studies, that a trend where it starts going, the power coefficient goes up and then is constant for just a bit and then starts to go down or decline. And then let's move on to this graph over here. So this is the azimuthal position. And what that is basically the position of the rotor, whether it's going up to the side, right, front, or usually it's front if you don't understand. But it's just the change in the azimuthal position, and then the torque coefficient was measured. And then one of the most important ones for this study were the tip speed ratio and the power coefficient. As you can see, there's experimental and present study, which is CFD. And you can also see the trend that I explained earlier, that it starts by increasing, constant, then declining. Here's another study that I used. It's by Ferrari in 2017. And this one, it's important to me because CFD 2D and 3D were compared. So 2D and 3D are two types of CFD solvers. 3D usually requires more computer performance, but you can tell that the results are relatively close. 3D is better because it's slightly more accurate, but they're relatively close. So this is good because it tells people that 2D is just almost as good as 3D. So why do a more expensive one and use 3D when you can just use 2D? This is another study. This is very important to me because the seriation, which is the bio-inspired aspect of my study, was used. So you can see there's different altitudes and wavelengths. Altitudes are the length between the bottom and the top area of the seriation. And the wavelengths is the length between the top, this top part of like the hill, I can call it, to the second one. And you can see there's several combinations that were done. And this is a helical, these types of plates are called helical vertical axis designs. And you can see over here, this is amplitude of 2, wavelength of 1, and twist angle of 2, and it produced an SN ratio of 10.38. Let's look at another one. So this is not too important, but what is good about it is because it's from 2021, so it's very recent. So what this is basically geometrical applications to wind turbines, and also using CFD. If I repeated my study, what would I change? So definitely, I would summarize more papers. It's like, and like it's never enough. Like you can continue and going on forever. I would look into blade element momentum. I've heard that's something that it's something about computational, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't looked into it too much, but it's something similar to CFD using a computer. And also I'd search for more solvers. In conclusion, researching about CFD made me realize that it could be a good alternative to experimental method. And I also hope to analyze my blades using my previous bio-inspired and smart blades using CFD. So what's next? What would I do next? So basically, these are the bio-inspired and smart aspects of my blade. So this is a brown bobby bird, and what's bio-inspired from it is the wing, the shape of the wing. This is a humpback whale, and what's bio-inspired from it is a seriation. It's basically the bumps on the fins, like I showed you in one of the previous studies. And then this is basically a flower that opens and closes, and it can be explained the smart aspect. So what the smart aspect is basically a wind turbine that can change, that has two angles, but it's one turbine. So what's good about this wind propeller is that it can open up when the wind conditions are good and it can start spinning. But when the wind conditions can damage it, it can close up and it won't spin, and that would be protective to it. So let's talk about my experimental method, literature reviews from my previous year. This is how I have done it. So I used a wind tunnel and a motor to test my blades, and the power of the wind was calculated by measuring the wind speed using an anemometer. The power output was calculated by measuring the voltage and resistance. And then this is how I did the hubs. Like the hubs, for example, one of them I used a 3D printer. Sorry about that. And then one of them I used the bottom of medicine bottles, and then the seriation I did using a soldering iron, and etc. Also I measured the drag force, which was done using a drag force tool and a scale. So let's look at some of the results I got from my experimental. So this is one of the most important ones. I changed the diameter and seriation. And you can see seriation surprisingly decreased the performance of the blade, and that was really surprising because in other studies it was supposed to improve the blade, but maybe it should have been the optimization of the blade, which I'm hoping I can do in using a CFD. This is the cone angle. This is basically a smart aspect of my blade. You can tell that the 4 centimeter non-seriated cone angle did the best. And then based upon what I've learned, how can this knowledge benefit society? So first of all, the increase of renewable energy is very important, especially wind turbines. That is something we all have to look into. And one day we have to like stop using fossil fuels and just convert fully into renewable energy. We have to encourage people to use CFD. CFD it's a very good alternative to experimental method. And then we wanted to also make wind turbines more resilient and reduction in the cost. Making them more resilient would make people trust them more, and maybe that would make them buy them more. Same with the cost. Since they're cheaper, people can buy them more, and we'll start relying on wind energy more. And that all sums up to be good for the environment. And so that's all for my study. I hope you enjoyed my study. Yeah, and that's all. Have a good rest of your day, and bye.